Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to do the poem Obituary by A K Ramanujan. Obituary by A K Ramanujan is a 8-line stanza poem that is separated in 2 sets of 7 lines. These lines do not follow a specific rhyme scheme, but that does not mean that there aren't any moments of rhyme and rhythm in the text. For example, Ramanujan makes use of slant or half rhymes. These are seen through the repetition of assonance or consonants. Assonance is a repetition of vowel sounds. Consonance is the repetition of consonants. This means that either a vowel or a consonant sound is reused within one line or multiple lines of verse. There are a few examples of this kind of rhyme in the first stanza with the words papers and daughters and on and grandson. These words do not rhyme perfectly, but they are clearly similar. In the fourth stanza, the endings of the first 3 lines are connected due to a similarity in assonance. The long E sound is repeated in the gingerly, priest, and east. Alliteration is another technique found in obituary. It helps to create additional moments of rhyme for the text and also at times helps to support the tone. One example is deads and daughters in the first stanza. The relationship between these 2 words is somewhat humorous, and the fact that they begin with the same letter only emphasizes this fact. You can read the full poem, Obituary, on the screen, and let me read it for you first. Father, when he passed on, left dust on a table of papers, left deads and daughters, a bedwetting grandson named by the toss of a coin after him, a house that leaned slowly through our growing years on a bent coconut tree in the yard. Being the burning type, he burned properly at the cremation. As before, easily and at both ends, left his eye coins in the ashes that didn't look one bit different, several spinal discs, rough, some burnt to coal for sons. To pick gingerly and throw at the priest said, facing east, where 3 rivers met near the railway station, no long-standing headstone with his full name and 2 dates. To hold in their parentheses everything that he didn't quite manage to do himself, like his Caesarean birth in a Brahmin ghetto and his death by heart failure in the fruit market. But someone told me he got 2 lines in an inside column of a Madras newspaper sold by the kilo exactly 4 weeks later to streetwalkers who sell it in turn to small groceries where I buy salt, coriander and jaggery in the newspaper cones that I usually read for fun and lately in the hope of finding these obituary lines, and he left us a changed mother and more than one annual ritual. Obituary by A K Ramanujan describes the aftermath of a father's death and all the things he left behind, physical and emotional. The poet begins with the speaker telling the reader that his father died. When he died, he left behind a lot. There are useless and meaningless things like dust and old papers, but there are also memories and rituals which are going to last for a lifetime. In the second half of the poem, the speaker describes how they cremated their father and threw his leftover bones into the river. He also speaks about something he learned but is yet to see with his own eyes. Apparently, his father left an obituary in a local newspaper. Now, the son is searching the most popular papers for it, hoping to see this other thing he left behind. The poem ends with an emphasis on the importance of rituals that came from his father and are now established parts of family life. In the stanza 1, Father, when he passed on, left dust on a table of papers, left deads and daughters, a bedwetting grandson, named by the toss of a coin after him. In this first stanza of obituary, the speaker begins by telling the reader who died, his father. The speaker focuses on what the father left behind. There were utterly normal things that have taken on new importance, such as dust on a table of papers and deads and daughters. The father also left behind a grandson named after him. Little details like the fact that the grandson was named after him because of a toss of a coin are interesting and bring the reader closer to the speaker's family. A house that leaned slowly through our growing, years on a bent coconut tree in the yard, being the burning type, he burnt properly at the cremation. In this second stanza of obituary, he gives a list of things the father left behind. There was a house that had been leaning slowly throughout the speaker's years. It is on a coconut tree in the yard. In the next lines, there are a number of things that burning could also allude to. Practices associated with farming are the most obvious. To make it more complicated and relate it more easily to the laws, the speaker compares his father's habit of burning to the way he burnt promptly when he was cremated. The humor lightens the mood a bit and tells the reader that the speaker is not intending to speak too heavily on loss and depression. Instead, he is celebrating his father's life. Third stanza. As before, easily, at both ends, left his eye coins in the ashes that didn't look one bit different, several spinal discs, rough, some burnt to coal for sons. In the next lines of obituary, he refers to the eye coins. This is related to the tradition of putting coins on a dead person's eyes when they are buried, or in this case, before they are cremated. He draws attention to the fact that the coins did not burn. They were left in the ashes, looking the same as when they went into the fire. Alongside the coins are several spinal discs. These, unlike the coins, are rough. Next stanza. To pick gingerly and throw as the priest said, facing east where three rivers met, near the railway station, no long-standing headstone with his full name and 2 dates. The sons, the speaker, and his brothers engage in a ritual of throwing these bits of bone facing east where 3 rivers met near the railway station. Sangam, which we call in Hindi. The speaker mixes traditional and mysticism with reality. This ritual happens somewhere normal, right near a railway station. He goes on to describe how they chose not to have a headstone for their father. They didn't think that his full name and his 2 dates would do him justice. Next stanza. To holding their parentheses, everything he didn't quite manage to do himself, like his Caesarean birth in a Brahmin ghetto and his death by heart failure in the fruit market. The parentheses which would go around the dates would have represented everything he didn't quite manage to do himself. The kind of things the speaker is thinking of are the father's birth and his death. He was born in a Brahmin ghetto and he died by heart failure in the fruit market. Simple places are again contrasted with important events. In the next stanza, but someone told me he got 2 lines in an inside column of a Madras newspaper sold by the kilo exactly 4 weeks later to the street walkers. The 6th stanza relates directly back to the title of the poem Obituary. The father has left something behind, 2 lines in an inside column of a Madras newspaper. The son doesn't know exactly which paper or where the lines are, but he did hear that it is sold by the kilo and would turn up with the street hawkers who or those on the street selling goods 4 weeks later. In these lines, the poet makes use of half rhyme with newspaper and street hawkers, who sell it in turn to the small groceries where I buy salt, coriander, and jaggery. And in newspaper cones that I usually read. These sellers bring their papers to the grocery stores where the speaker goes to buy normal everyday products. Usually he buys newspaper along with spices such as coriander. In these lines, groceries and jaggery are half rhymes connected due to their E sounds. The last stanza, for fun and lately, in the hope of finding these obituary lines, and he left us a changed mother, more than one annual ritual. In the last 7 lines, the speaker describes reading the paper and hoping to find the obituary lines. Their presence is one thing the father left behind, along with everything else mentioned in the previous stanzas. The poem ends with the speaker describing how his mother has changed. Now he adds the family is left with one more annual ritual, that is the Shraddh, which we do for the dead according to Indian customs, which were started by a man who is no longer alive. This much for today. Thank you.